Ann is one of the star guests here. She's one of the mainstays and always gets things fired up. I just saw her about a week ago at the Breitbart event, right? The Breitbart party, and her new book, Resistance is Futile, another must-read by Ann Coulter. You got to get this. And thanks for joining us a few moments ago, impromptu. That was great.
That was so fun. Oh, my gosh, Corey was so great. And what I said was true. The campaign was going great when it was
Wasn't
just
it?
the three of them.
It was just, I was there from the beginning, and Corey told you exactly what he wanted, and he gave you the tools to do it. And if you needed something, you called him back. And I was there from the beginning in Virginia. He never fussed at me once. And it was an experience of a lifetime.
And was so
she was the best.
So cool.
She was just so cool.
She'd just be hanging out at Mar-a-Lago, responding people on her iPhone, go for a swim. She'd get back to journalists like that. Oh, Hope is so cool.
That was definitely the dream team.
Yes, the candidate did say that.
That's right. And none of this would have happened. We were for Corey being chief of staff, the
Hope,
powers to be.
Bless her little soul. When I went to the White House early in the administration, everyone was telling me, Hope's right outside the Oval Office, and they were saying, this was, I think, before the magnificent Sarah Huckabee Sanders came in. Everyone was saying, yeah, Hope kept insisting you be press secretary. So I said, thank you. I don't want a job. I don't want to move to Washington. However, I would like to do it for 1 month free just to show how it's done. Then I'll go back to New York.
And what was their reaction?
But then Sarah Huckabee Sanders came along, and nobody's teaching her anything. Oh, my gosh, she's great.
She is very good. She is very good. No question about it. And it's enjoyable to watch her. Now, sometimes, it's a little frustrating because you go to the press briefings like I do. I'm a White House correspondent. And you don't get a lot of information.
Well, that's the frustrating thing. I mean, that was my plan for how to run the press conference. No matter what they ask. Oh, Woodward says the president's losing his mind. I would say, I'm glad you asked that. We're thinking the wall has to be about 36 feet high. We'll go about 10 feet deep to make sure, maybe 17 feet. I'm not sure. We'll have to check with Israel on how their wall works, because they have a magnificent wall. And I would just answer questions that are pertinent to the American people, and not all of this showboating from people who, it's like a dinner party where people are trying to see who can say the most outrageous thing. That's what the press has become. They really have not covered themselves in glory under the Trump administration. Thus, my book, Resistance is Futile, How the Trump-Hating Left Lost Its Collective Mind. There's really been nothing like this before, and they're making asses of themselves. They just don't care as long as they can say something bitter and nasty and outrageous about Donald Trump. That is half the country's political position. Where does Trump stand on this? Oh, that's awful.
So, Chuck Todd yesterday, and this is perfect timing, we're with Ann Coulter. And by the way, you got to buy her book, Resistance is Futile. Got a chance to read it this weekend because
Isn't it fun?
It's a fun read. You just got to get it. First of all, you're a very gifted writer, but it's a fun read. It's just a fun read. It's not one of those things. It's not like a textbook where you're trying to do math. It's just a fun read, and it's all true, and you're going to enjoy it. So buy that book, Resistance is Futile. You can buy it on Amazon, your favorite bookstore. Resistance is Futile by Ann Coulter. Buy it today. I got a signed copy. Also got a signed copy from my lovely wife, Ann. Now, Chuck Todd yesterday does a op-ed in the Atlantic and says he wants the members of the news media to become more aggressive and start fighting back against conservative media. And he says especially the Washington, D.C. Trump echo chamber. Who the hell is that, me? What the hell is he talking about?
I love the idea that they've decided it's not working. We need to be crazier. How could they be any tougher on him? I mean, no matter what he does, one of my favorite examples from the book, they do this all the time. Well, actually, we can do it with something very recent. So with the McCain funeral, which I believe is now in its 8th month, so you can still check into it.
It's 8th month.
Trump, well, for one thing, the media goes on and on about how, straight talk, he was such a straight talker, knew right where he stood. Whether or not that was true with McCain, apparently they consider it that a desirable quality is to be a straight talker, honest, to evidence candor. They don't seem to like candor when Trump is being the honest one. I mean, he sends out just, a straightforward tweet. Obviously, political opponents with McCain, they were definitely at loggerheads politically. And Trump sends out a tweet that isn't some saccharine, sanctimonious BS. If he had sent out that, and it's so mean, this tweet. No, it's honest. It's honest. You say you want straight talk, this is straight talk. He's being kind to the family. This is very sad. Sympathies go out to you. But he's not going on for 20 minutes about McCain being an American hero. If he had done so, they would have attacked him for being a liar and had all the flashbacks to when he was attacking him. But my favorite one from the book was when he pardoned Joe Arpaio during Hurricane Harvey. And first you get this round of headlines. Trump buries bad news by releasing pardon in middle of hurricane. And it was just New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, CNN. Buries bad news. He's doing this to distract from the pardon of Joe Arpaio. Trump responds by saying, I thought ratings were higher during a hurricane. Aren't people being more? And then all the headlines are outrageous. Trump looks at ratings for when to release news. You just can't win with them. And yeah, Chuck Todd, the problem is the media isn't being tough enough. Yeah, try that.
This is an outrageous statement. And then you had, was it Thomas Friedman of the New York Times and Coulter 2 weeks ago saying that editorials had to get tougher. Then they coordinated that ridiculous editorial day they had blasting the president. Let's get
certainly proves there's no conspiracy in the press.
Oh, no, nothing at all, right? I mean, and when you go to the press conferences like I do, some of them are really ridiculous, some of the questions, and people have them written down. This is one thing I always
Why
laugh
does
at.
David Duke like you?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, good grief.
That's right. There's some of them are ridiculous.
No president has ever been asked so much about David Duke. I don't even think David Duke exists. I think he died 20 years ago and no one knows.
It's
but
like Weekend with Bernie.
You only hear about him every time a Republican is running, and oh my gosh, every 6 seconds with Trump and his supporters. Do you? Meanwhile, it's not like Republicans are inviting David Duke to their conventions or inviting him to visit him at the White House. But boy, Al Sharpton, how many times did he go to Obama's White House? He's gone to the Democratic National Convention. And I am quite sure that if David Duke, assuming he is still alive, if he gave a speech and people listening then killed people, we would know about it. I know of at least two times, Crown Heights and Freddie's Fashion Mart, where Al Sharpton spoke to a crowd, ginned them up, and lots of people subsequently died. So measuring deaths after a speech, David Duke, Al Sharpton. I think David Duke, assuming he exists, is not apocryphal. I don't think he could get away with being audited and saying, my office had a fire. We lost our records. Sharpton's done that at least twice. And yet he's a featured guest, but we have to keep responding to this imaginary David Duke character.
Well, we have Al Sharpton, a lot of fires in his files. And this, it's talking about the new book out by Bob Woodward, All the Rage Now, More Never Trumpers, ratting out the president. What do you make of it?
I think once again I'm losing my slot on Meet the Press. It's either Omarosa or Bob Woodward. It sounds like nonsense. I was, when I was listening to some of it last night on, I don't know, CNN or MSNBC, my two staples of news. I was thinking, is he worried about, does he not have enough money socked away already? Does he have kids still, college tuition, law school, medical school to pay off? It just seems like one of those books like Omarosa, calculated to, oh yes, liberals will all buy it. He calls Trump crazy. Let's rush out and get it. I mean, I will say Trump seemed not to like it. The Michael Wolff book was actually really good. And I think it wasn't, some of it was not true, but it was what people were telling him. But it was excellent reporting. It gives you a sense of the zeitgeist in the Trump White House. A lot of it is funny. I didn't think it was that bad for Trump. I thought it was fun to read. This stuff, the Omarosa stuff and the Bob Woodward, like, as I say in the book, it's become a competition of who can say the most outrageous thing about Trump, whether it's John Brennan or Omarosa or Bob Woodward. And oh my gosh, you will get banner headlines all over. You'll make money. Don't worry, your kid's college tuition is paid for. You're going to get that nice retirement home. But it has nothing to do with reality.
Well, it's like James Clapper, or I guess former Virginia governor now running for president, Terry McAuliffe, who says if the president came out from his podium, he would go punch him out, right? Just go figure out the most outrageous thing to say to be able to get a headline. And where are we with the wall?
Well, for the Trump supporters, you're not going to like the next 60 seconds of this discussion. No, I'm really testy with Trump for not doing it. And I mean, this is what's frustrating about resistance is futile. In this one little area, they're not being that futile. They're distracting the president. Why do liberals hate Trump? Well, a lot of it is just aesthetic. They just find him tacky. They hate the gold fixtures, and they try to pretend it's this big existential crisis for the country, as opposed to we just find him tacky and vulgar. But part of it is immigration. Look, the left isn't going to go that crazy if Trump brings jobs back to America. Yeah, they don't care about the working class. They don't care about flyover country. But it doesn't enrage them. If Trump stops the current immigration policies that are transforming America to give the left absolute hegemonic control to turn the entire country into California without the nice beaches, that is actually impinging their plan. They are just about to have total control. They'll be in heaven. No Republican will ever be elected president again. We'll have 9 Ruth Bader Ginsburgs on the Supreme Court. And this crazy, I mean, they are enjoying themselves with the resistance stuff, but it is distracting Trump, and he's not keeping his promises on immigration. If he really wants to screw his enemies, if he really wants to screw Bob Mueller and Adam Schiff, build the wall and deport illegals. They're playing the long game and enjoying themselves with the short game. It's a win-win for them. Maybe they can remove the president from office with all this Russia nonsense. But even if they don't, they're distracting him enough that he spends his days tweeting insults to his attorney general, Jeff Sessions, whom I might add is the one man who's keeping the immigration promises.
So, Ann, when he attempted to get rid of catch and release, which isn't a policy, basically it's open borders.
Right.
And he went to zero tolerance if you come over the border legally.
That was Sessions.
Right. And Sessions
did that.
That
was Sessions.
And then we had, separations from children, kids in cages narrative and things of that nature. But now we're back to square one. Now we're back to no policy, catch and release, which is basically, it isn't a policy. It's open borders.
Yes.
How do you fix this in reality?
Well, one thing I want to point out, which I love, and Trump seemed to be the only one who figured it out during the campaign. I think I agree on this. I always feel like when we talk about Trump, it's like you have a kid who's gotten into drugs and you always say, no, my kid's fine. He's hanging out with a bad crowd. That's what I think about Trump. No, my Trump is fine, but he's hanging out with a bad crowd. Look, Sessions is the one who is doing everything right on this. The catch and release, it's an ACLU policy. They picked 20 days because that's longer than it takes to process the claims. Just set Sessions loose and he'll protect the borders. Of course, we wouldn't have to worry about any of this if we had a wall. If only we had a developer in the White House.
How does he get the funding for the wall? I mean, he can't get the funding.
He's the president of the United States. He controls the entire executive branch. He controls how money is spent for the Department of Defense, how money is spent for the Department of Homeland Security. His job, according to the Constitution, is to protect our borders, not to protect Syria's borders, not to protect, borders in Afghanistan. He can bring the troops home. He can put them at the border. And oh my gosh, you would have private funding for the wall if he did not have the entire executive branch in his perfectly normal-sized hands.
So he could simply divert money constitutionally from Homeland Security or Defense and build a wall.
Yeah, that's his job. He's the president. The Congress cannot pass a law to prevent the commander-in-chief from being commander-in-chief. Fine, let them sue. He's commander-in-chief.
But they do appropriate the money.
Yeah, okay.
So he could just divert the money, is what you're
Okay,
what you're
how
saying.
does he have money to bomb Syria based on a scam of chemical weapons being used?
You think that was a scam?
Well, we know it was. The UN investigated for 6 months. It turned out no nerve gas was used. Very small story, but I tweeted it out. They finally came out with their report about a month ago. Turned out the whole thing was a lie. So we're bombing countries based on false reports. Boeing is making a lot of money. It's almost like nothing has changed. So we do have the military-industrial complex. How does he have the authority to do that? What if, Syria, since that's the country we're so worried about, so many Americans are being killed by Syrians and getting addicted to heroin by Syrians and being raped by Syrians. Suppose Syria invaded. Could the president do anything, John? He's commander-in-chief. Why, yes, I think he could. We're being invaded from the southern border. The illegal immigrants are killing more Americans, addicting more Americans than the Soviet Union, the evil empire, ever did. It's madness. We're in the middle of a war, and the commander-in-chief thinks, well, I didn't see the line item on that in Department of Defense. I guess I can't do anything. We just have to be run over. No, of course he can. He's commander-in-chief. He can build the wall right now.
So it gets back to his staff, right?
I think so. I think my president is hanging out with a bad crowd.
Like your child. Right. Great analogy.
Right. And the one guy who knows the truth is Jeff Sessions. I mean, this is something he's been studying for 30 years, which is why I want to strangle the president, that he keeps going after Sessions. Yeah, okay, he wants to go after the swamp and have prosecutions. Is that really... I shouldn't say this because bad things happen when the Democrats win any branch of government. It looks like there's going to be a blue wave. Who knows? I hope we can stop it. If there is a blue wave, I actually don't think it's going to hurt Trump. The Democrats are going to spend... It's going to be Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell through the wazoo. They are going to be investigating everyone, having hearings. Americans are going to hate that and hate the Democrats. That's what Trump wants Sessions to do with the Department of Justice. Oh, we'll have prosecutions. And look, I hate all these people. Prosecutions for Eric Holder and Nellie Orr or Bruce Orr. Oh, no, please don't. And Hillary Clinton for uranium one. No, please just do what liberals don't want you to do most of all, which is enforce immigration law.
And stop the illegals from coming in so that they can have eventually total control.
Total control.
And never
we
lose again.
Lose everything, yes.
And you'll never be able to change it.
Yes.
Right?
Never.
That is the chess endgame, checkmate, double checkmate.
Yes.
You'll never end it. And that's why they're for open borders. I mean, and it's what I always call the unholy alliance between the Democrats that want the cheap votes coming over the border that they can turn into permanent political control of the United States, and Goldman Sachs and Lower Manhattan that wants cheap labor, and the Republicans and their donors, and they all look the other way in the short term in order to bring everybody in. And one group makes money in the short term and the other's playing the long-term power game. That's it, right? I've been saying that for 20 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vote Dave Bratt.
Vote Dave Bratt. Thank you, Ed. Final thing I have to say, I was made fun of by really questioning the most recent Syrian chemical attack because I just didn't see any evidence on it. And it
Look this up. The UN investigated.
It didn't make any sense for Assad to do that when he was winning. Right? It just didn't make any sense.
Yes.
Why would you get the U.S. back involved?
Exactly.
Right? It made no sense. Now the UN, and the UN comes out and says, well, we really can't find evidence that Assad did this.
Yes.
And
they
where is
did.
that?
It took like 6 months. They're taking samples from the dead bodies to test to see if there were any chemical weapon, or it was nerve gas. They named a specific. No nerve gas was used. They looked through the corpses. 6 months the UN has been investigating. If that made the cover of the New York Times, I didn't see it. It's his tiny little report. I tweeted it out. I mean, it's a big report, but wow, that didn't get a lot of news.
No, because it didn't fit the military-industrial complex.
It really, it is the two parties against the people.
It really is.
And Trump pointed, we'll give the Trump campaign credit for a million things. Pointing that out is one of them.
And another thing coming from the CIA that you have to question.
Yes.
Just like
Oh,
WMDs.
yes.
Just another one.
Yes.
And of many.
Yes. Like, the Shah is safe. We expect him to be in power for the next 10 years.
Unbelievable. I tell you what, we could talk forever, but we're out of time. Ann Coulter, great to have you with us.
Great
Ann.
to talk to
Thank
you again.
So much.
Thank
have so
you.
much fun. We're going to get you down to help Dave. You got to buy Ann's book, Resistance is Futile.
fun.
And Coulter, buy the book. Go to B. Dalton. Go to Amazon. Go online. Resistance is Futile. It's a great read. And we're going to try to get Ann down in Virginia's 7th District to help the Dave Brat re-election campaign.
Yes, he's magnificent.